This is strange. This is strange. This is strange.
Everywhere you turn, it's the same old sports talk, the same headlines, the same news, and the same boring information. This podcast is here to change all of that. We bring you hot sports takes, winning sports betting strategy and picks, reliable gaming industry news, and breaking interviews with some of the biggest names in sports business. My name is Ryan Newpel, and welcome to the Noop Sports Show.
Welcome, everybody. It's college football. This is Noop Sports with our college football Week 1 preview. This is Tom at Noop Sports along with Rodney. Hey, Rodney, how's it going?
Hey, good. How are you tonight?
Good. You ready for this football season?
I am ready. I'm ready for all the college football. We got started with a little sneak peek last week at, I guess we're calling it the Week 0 games. Kind of thanks to you for terming that, Week 0 games. But found ESPN, a few other sites are terming it Week 0. So some pretty good Week 0 games. Looking forward to Week 1.
That was kind of a weak thing, though, to go 0 with that.
Yeah, and we here at Noop Sports, we're putting some previews and stuff out, and we're wondering how many people are actually searching for Week 0 college football games. But nonetheless, they did play Week 0, and I was really impressed with Colorado State. I thought they looked pretty good, and then of course Stanford going to Australia and just whipping up on Rice. Other than that, it's just some ho hum games, but it's nice to have college football back.
Yeah, we have it all up on our website, don't we?
Yeah, noobsports.com is a good place to go to. We're just at a year from when we launched a season ago. You probably remember our podcast from a season ago when we talked college football. We even put together some NFL podcasts. Last year it was Ryan and I. I think that's the plan again this year as well. Go to noobsports.com. First of all, if you haven't gotten into betting, you have an opportunity to do so. We don't ask for a dime at Noop Sports, but we do have some opportunities for you to get involved. One of our books, Bovada, is offering up to 50% deposit bonus. Some of the things that we offer at Noop Sports are NCAA football panel poll, where I have about a dozen people putting their polls together. It's kind of like the coaches poll, where they all will submit their poll, and we'll accumulate it, and then we'll put our Noop Sports poll out there. And one person did not vote Alabama, and I'm going to have to ask you, what's the reason for no Alabama at number 1?
I think Ohio State's they got the athletes, they got the players. We're going to talk about them first here in just a minute. I just think they're the ones this year.
Yeah, well, Urban Meyer and Ohio State's pretty good, and they came in as the consensus number 2. But if you go to noobsports.com, you can check out that panel poll, and that'll be updated every week. There are plenty of other things as well. We have our weekly picks up there, where we'll have an updated spreadsheet on how we've done, how we're doing, and what we are doing over the weekend. I know I've got my Thursday, Friday picks, working on my Saturday picks now. You've got them already, so go to noobsports.com. College football betting picks is where you can find all of our Week 1 picks. We'll have that updated every week.
And every once in a while we dabble. I dabble in the UFC fights, and we do some horse racing. So we get involved in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad that's you. And I mean, horse racing's all right. The UFC, of course, we're coming off that Mayweather-McGregor boxing match. Our big niche would probably be college football, NFL, and then we get into some of the winter sports with NHL, NBA, and NCAA basketball. We're looking forward to it. This is a great time of year because it really kicks off the sports season, because you won't have another boring time. You got all the football leads right into hockey, right into basketball, and we'll be off and running.
Okay, well, let's look at the game tomorrow night. We have we're gonna start with Ohio State. Ohio State, Indiana. The line's somewhere around Indiana plus 20 up to 21.5. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it should be a good game. Actually, I know a lot of people are thinking Ohio State's gonna go in there and run them out, and they might. I mean, Urban Meyer and Ohio State are going to be very good. The total started at 53. It's been bumped up to 57 now. It is about a 20.5, 21-point line. So a little interesting line there. I actually think Indiana is going to do just fine. Don't think they'll win there at Memorial Stadium, but I think they're going to do just fine. I mean, they are going to have, obviously, a big crowd there. They want to see an upset. Indiana's going to be a little more improved than they were a season ago. They were pretty bad a season ago. But I actually think, especially if you can somehow find it at 21 or 21.5, I think you take Indiana in this game, something like, 34, 14, somewhere around there, and the over under at 57 started at 53. Could be interesting, but I think I'm going to side with Indiana, which is just 38% of the country.
Well, I think before I tell you mine on that one, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Ohio State. I think they're embarrassed from last year, and I think they got something to prove out there. And of course, they're bringing back J.T. Barrett, which is like his 5th season, and their new offensive coordinator, former Indiana head coach Kevin Wilson.
Yeah, there is some drama there. Obviously, Kevin Wilson was let go. It wasn't terribly happy about it. So there is some drama there. There's a lot of storylines for this game. It's a good Thursday night game. I guess the only embarrassment would be not scoring in the college football playoff semifinal. That's a little embarrassing.
Yeah,
but,
I think that happened.
Yeah, and their only other loss was to Penn State. So this is a really good team. I just think Indiana keeps it close. Ohio State wins, but Indiana, I've got keeping it close.
Well, I got to go with that too. Indiana's going to cover that 21.5 or 20. They got a good quarterback, Richard Legal, threw a lot of yards last year, a lot of touchdowns. He's got his receiving quarterback. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people this year, but they're not going to win this game. But I do look for them to cover.
Yeah, I think it should be a pretty good. I hope it's a pretty good game. It's kind of the marquee game Thursday night.
Yeah, it is. So we both go with the Indiana to cover. Also, now you mentioned Colorado State. They go right back into it this week, playing their home Colorado Buffaloes. Where are you going to go?
Yeah, and that's an interesting game because obviously those two state rivals. That's played in Denver. So don't be fooled by the who's at home and who's in away. A little bit of storyline behind this one. Colorado opened up at -8. And currently it's Colorado -4. So a lot of money coming in on the Rams because they were pretty impressive last week. I was pretty impressed with them beating Oregon State. Now, Oregon State's not going to be great, but it is a Power 5 conference team there at the Pac-12. I actually think Colorado State could win this game. They scored, 58 points last week against Oregon State, had over 330 passing yards from quarterback Nick Stevens. Michael Gallup, one of the impressive receivers there in week 0. I think Michael Gallup has another big game. I'm actually going to take Colorado State money line. I'll take them as the upset in this game. The over-under 66, I'll stay away from. But I'll take Colorado State +4 beating the Buffaloes in this game.
Yeah, I'm going to go against that one. I got Colorado winning that one. They just, they put up a lot of points last year, and that doesn't mean it translates into this year, but they got a lot of weapons to give you. I just think that they will come through with this game. They only got 5 true road games this year, I will tell you that, but I think that they're gonna compete. I think that Colorado State played maybe a little bit better than they were last week, and I'm going with the Buffaloes on that.
Yeah, a little note on Colorado's schedule. You mentioned their 5 true road games. They've got this neutral site game, then they're at 3 at home. They've got Washington coming up towards the end of September, which could be a big Pac-12 game. So, yeah, this is one of those games that if Colorado does find a way to win, that they could set up some pretty good matchups later in the Pac-12. I just think Colorado State's a little underrated, and I'm going to take the Rams.
Okay.
Hey everybody, it's Ryan with Noob Sports. Hey, quick break in the action here. I wanted to tell you about a sweet promotion going on this football season at Bovada, one of the best places to bet on football. They got a 50% bonus all the way up to $250. All you got to do is head out to Noob Sports. That's knupsports.com/bet.
Well, I wanted to throw in, I kind of wanted to throw this game in, so I did. Navy and Florida Atlantic, and you probably know why.
Yeah, so quite a bit of movement on that game, and I'm sure there's reasons why, but a huge movement. Started at 17, Florida Atlantic at +17, and now it's down to under 10. I see the totals kind of stayed the same, but Florida Atlantic, I think we're a little familiar with the guy over there.
Oh yeah, he's got some weapons there. He brought in a quarterback that was at Florida State. He brought in a known offensive coordinator in Kendall Briles. I like Florida Atlantic.
Yeah, it certainly is a test Friday night, and I'm glad it's a Friday night game because it gives us an opportunity to see it. It's at home. I was a little surprised that they were +17 even to start this game. The Owls then go to Wisconsin next week. Could set up a pretty good matchup. I haven't done enough research on Navy to know just how good they're going to be. This is a team that's consistent every year as far as, they're going to want to run the football. They're going to be disciplined, and they're going to want to make sure they don't turn over the football. So, there's some thoughts there. But I think I'll take Florida Atlantic because of, all the hype. And, Lane Kiffin is going to have his team ready to go. It'll be interesting to see how, I could see a nice honeymoon but we know this is all going to end poorly for Lane Kiffin. But Navy did finish the last 3 games last year losing: Temple, Army, and Louisiana Tech. I'll take the Owls to cover, especially if you can get it around 10. At 10 would be perfect. 10.5 would be even better. But I'll take the Owls to cover this. I won't take them straight up to win, but I'll take them to cover the spread.
Well, the true bettors got to know that the midshipmen were 10-4 last year in the last 4 seasons as an underdog. So they upset Notre Dame at home last year. They're pretty experienced. The experience comes back on offense. But Lane Kiffin hired his brother and his father, so I'm still going to go with Florida Atlantic on that.
All right.
Let's move on. Let's move to the Big Ten, and I threw this into Ball State and Illinois because this might be the only game Illinois wins.
Yeah, I mean, probably not, but
Yeah.
you've got to,
Right.
Lovie Smith in his second season, he's got to be better, and you think he will probably be better. I mean, Illinois played some pretty good cupcakes in the beginning of the season, so will they win this game? Yeah, I think they'll win this game, and in fact, I think they'll blow out Ball State. Ball State's no good. Ball State's no good. Illinois is not very good either, but there's a big level between a pretty bad MAC team and a very bad Big Ten team. I'm going to take the Illini to win this game. And obviously being here in Illinois, I hear quite a bit about the Illini. There's a lot of excitement for the Illini because they think Lovie Smith's bringing in, some better players. But, Lovie Smith has to bring in better players. Some of his players last year were not D1 caliber, let alone Big Ten caliber. But Illinois, real quick on their schedule, I mentioned they got some cupcakes. Western Kentucky, I don't know if I'd call that a cupcake, but they come in, and then they go to South Florida, and we saw South Florida's pretty good, and then the Big Ten season starts. So I do think they can beat Western Kentucky. I think they'll beat Purdue later in the year. They'll find a way to win another game. But I'll take Illinois, and I like this game. I like this game quite a bit. I think Illinois wins this game, especially if you can somehow grab it at -6.5.
Well, I think Ball State is going to compete in this game a little bit, and if they can keep it close, the game is close near the end. They got a really good place kicker there in Morgan Hagee. He's hit 26 of 28 last year. They might be able to steal a game or two, but I don't think it's going to be with the Illini. They're just a little bit more experienced when you talk about the Big Ten and everything. But I think Illinois, I think they'll beat Western Kentucky, and I think they'll beat Rutgers, and I think that's it for them. It's going to be, and Illinois is going to be so excited because they're 2-0 when they start.
Well, yeah, I think they're going to beat Purdue. Purdue's going to be one of the worst teams in college football. But a little note on Ball State, they lost 7 of their last 8 last season. They only won 4 games. They don't have great talent. They finished their season with 5 straight losses, 3 of them by double digits. So Ball State's not very good. Their only 2 wins were against Eastern Kentucky, Florida Atlantic, Georgia State, and Buffalo. So 4 wins last year. But I like the Illini to win this game. I like them to cover as well.
Okay, let's stay in the Big Ten. We've got to talk about Maryland and Texas. Texas is like an 18.5-point favorite. One thing that happened when Tom Herman got that job, the cupboard was not bare.
No, certainly not. Certainly not. And, and we're fine. We need to start seeing this Texas team start winning games again. And it's probably better for college football if Texas wins games. I mean, everybody knows the Horns, and the Horns need to start winning games. The last several years, the Horns have been irrelevant. And out of the Big 12, somebody else needs to be relevant besides Oklahoma. We know how things have gone with Oklahoma, as far as they haven't been to the, college football playoffs. So, Maryland at Texas, it did start at 20.5. The total somewhere around 57. It dropped down to 18.5. I think Texas probably blows them out in this game. I do think you'll see some excitement early from Texas. And, less than 3 touchdowns, I think you got to take the Longhorns. I'll take Texas to win and cover this game. Well,
let me give you a stat for the bettors out there. Tom Herman's teams are 48-8 straight up, including 11-0 as underdogs.
Yeah,
that's as a head coach.
Yeah, well, they're not an underdog in this game, but straight up, 18. They're an 18.5-point favorite in this game. They better win this game. Right,
and the Terrapins are just really pretty bad. They've gone through a lot of quarterbacks. They just don't. The defense is really porous. They don't get anything through. It's going to be a Texas Longhorn game.
Yeah, Maryland's schedule They got Townsend, they got Central Florida coming up, and then they go Big Ten schedule. So they're a team, 3, 4, maybe 5 wins. They might be able to beat Rutgers. They might be able to find a way to beat Indiana, but they're not going to win very many games. Texas, on the other hand, like I said, they come into the season ranked 23rd. Are they really the 23rd best team in the country? Well, this is a Texas program that I think over the last 10 years has been a top 10, 15 program. They need to start figuring it out. I think this is a game, they certainly can win. They got San Jose State coming up next. Not bad. But then they play USC in a huge Week 3 game. What they would like to be 2-0. And then they got 3 straight conference games, Kansas State, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State. So a tough schedule for Texas, playing 4 ranked teams out of their first 7. I like Texas to win this game pretty easily.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Texas. I want to move on to Michigan, and I heard a segment on radio this week, just a couple of days ago, about Harbaugh can get him 10 wins, but it's time that he stepped up and got him the Big Ten conference, maybe moving on. So he might be a little bit on the hot seat, but Michigan and Florida Gators could be a great game.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It is time for Harbaugh to step, but he's done a really good job at Michigan for what he started with. I mean, he took over where Michigan was towards the bottom of what they've been doing over the last 20, 30 years. I mean, Harbaugh's done a really good job there. This started at 3, it's 5, only because about 10% of the Florida roster is suspended for this game. The total opened up at 48. It's down to 43. I think that's low. Yeah. But Florida was just atrocious offensively last year. One of the worst offenses in all of college football. I do look for this game to sail over, though. At 43, looking at something like 27-20, and you're going to go over. I think Michigan wins this game. I think Michigan wears Florida down because of the lack of depth that the Gators will be running with so many suspensions. There's been a lot of talk about this game, probably the second or third biggest game of the weekend. And one of my favorite games. I like Michigan quite a bit in this game. I'll take the Wolverines to win this game.
Well, yeah, I think it's going to go over too. I mean, Michigan's got a NFL caliber quarterback. I mean, they really do. Wilton Spate, they're going to go over. I agree with that.
Yeah, and Harbaugh keeps flirting out there that he's not sure who's going to start. It's going to be Wilton. I mean, I would be shocked if it was not him, because he wants to play the game of we don't know who the starting quarterback is. Now, one thing to keep in mind, this game is at AT&T Stadium there in Arlington, so it's no home game for any team. I don't think that matters. I think Michigan wins.
I think Michigan's 1 year away from being really, really good.
Well, it's interesting because they were a contender last year. They've fallen a little bit down in the rankings this year. I like them quite a bit. I think that them and Ohio State obviously are going to play a huge game at the end of the season, and a lot of times that rivalry game is 50-50. So I'll take Michigan to win this game and have a nice season.
Well, yeah, Penn State, Wisconsin are on the road, so those are going to be tough matches for them.
Yeah, certainly. But I like Michigan's pedigree. I think they win, and I think they have a nice season.
Well, let's go to West Virginia, Virginia Tech, 2 teams that are up in that top 25 mode. What do you got with them?
Yeah, a little bit of a rivalry game here. It's kind of a fun game here. West Virginia's kind of always been known for how they can score. How good is their offense this year? Who knows? Virginia Tech is a team out of the ACC that. Are they ready to compete? Are they ready to compete with the Clemsons, with the Florida States of the world? What is it? About a 4-point line right now for Virginia Tech. This is a tough game for me to pick. I mean, I will likely stay away from this game when it comes to betting it. I mean, it's a good game to talk about because it is 2 of the better programs in all of college football. But I'll probably stay away from this game. But it is a pretty fun game. It's Sunday night there in Maryland. So. Fun game. I guess I would lean towards the home team, but I think it'll be close.
Yeah, I got the Mountaineers. I mean, they play a really good up-tempo game. Their offensive coordinator was at Texas A&M. He was at Cal. And now they got a former Florida transfer, Will Greer. I think they average 31, 35 points a game. I got them in this game.
Sounds good.
Let's go to what is probably the big game. Alabama, Florida State. Florida State's got athletes. They got a sophomore quarterback who came on strong. They have one of the best corners in the country. but we know that Alabama is probably angry. They have a great quarterback. I think Florida State will cover. Alabama will win.
Yeah, I mean, this opened at 5.5 with a total of 53, and now it's at Florida State's +7 now, according to some places, including Bovada, with a total of 49.5. That seems low. It seems low. I mean, we've seen Alabama, obviously a very good defensive team, but you would think Florida State could get into the 20s, and if they get in their 20s, they're probably holding up their end of the bargain. At 7, I certainly like Florida State. If somehow you got that at 7.5, I think you almost have to take Florida State. 55% of the country's taking Alabama -7 right now. I think I'm going to go towards the Florida State side and hope and think that they can cover this game. And remember, this is also a neutral site game.
Yeah.
So no home field advantage for either team. This will be a fun game, and obviously this is the game of the night, Saturday night. I'm going to take Florida State as well. I do think Alabama wins the game, though.
This is a new stadium in Atlanta, isn't it? Is that where they're going?
Yeah. It should be a fun game there. They're going to avoid the any of the hurricane remnants there down in Houston because they're going to Atlanta. But I do think this will be a fun game. Obviously, a fun game. We get the number 3 and the number 1 team in the country. 2 of the best teams in college football. 2 of the best programs in college football. I mean, you look at 5 or 10 programs in college football, and these 2 are at the top. Along with teams like USC, Ohio State, others. So, yeah, this will be a good game. I do think they're going to go over, and I think that Florida State covers this game and, has a chance to win late, but Alabama gets the job done.
Right. I have to agree with that.
Hey everybody, it's Ryan with Noob Sports. Hey, quick break in the action here. I wanted to tell you about a sweet promotion going on this football season at Bovada, one of the best places to bet on football. They got a 50% bonus all the way up to $250. All you got to do is head out to Noob Sports. That's knupsports.com/bet.
Are there any teams out there that you think are really, we haven't talked about, really good out there that's going to surprise some people?
Well, I mean,
what about a Louisville or a team like that?
Yeah, I mean, Louisville goes a little bit under the radar because Lamar Jackson's back.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football, and a lot of people aren't talking about them. The thing about Louisville is they do have back-to-back games, North Carolina and Clemson. I think they'll beat Clemson. It's at home. I think Clemson's overhyped. If we want to get into an overhyped discussion, I think it's Clemson. I mean, Deshaun Watson meant a lot to this team. They lost other pieces. I know Dabo Swinney's got plenty of talent coming back. Now, Louisville, because I think they beat Clemson, I do think they roll through about the first 7 or 8 weeks until they have to go to Florida State. Now, obviously, on October 21st, that's going to be a monster game. I look for Louisville to hold up their end and be undefeated. Florida State's going to have a tough task, but Florida State, even if they lost Alabama and found a way to beat Louisville later, went on away to the ACC, they'll still be in that college football playoff. So Louisville, yeah, I like Louisville, and I think they have a great shot of really competing towards the end of the season. Looking at some other teams, I think Penn State's a little bit overhyped. I think their schedule's fairly weak, to be honest with you. I mean, their non-conference is bad. Then they got Iowa, Indiana, Northwestern. That's brutal. That's not good. But Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State trio of games there, I think will be the demise of Penn State. I think they're overrated, but that's just me.
Well, let me ask you about a couple other teams I have on my mind here. I like Auburn this year. They have a transfer quarterback in Stidham, and I think they're going to be really good. And what do you think of USC?
Well, I'll go to Auburn. I mean, Auburn will be good. My concern with Auburn is 2 really tough road games at Clemson, at LSU, and then even at Texas A&M. They also have Georgia. They have Alabama on that schedule. So, so if you're looking for a national title contender, I mean, they better be really good if they're gonna be a national title contender, because they do have these tough road games. USC,
I think Clemson's next week, isn't it?
So yeah, definitely week 2, and obviously week 2 you never know, they could get by those, but too many tough road games for me to like Alabama to win the national championship. I mean, because essentially, do I think Auburn will be good? Absolutely. Do I think they'll win the national championship? I just think too many tough teams on the schedule. Now USC, I really like Sam Darnold. obviously a Heisman contender. Look at their schedule as well. Now they have 2 back-to-back ranked teams, but they're both at home, Stanford and Texas. Their big road games would be at Washington State, at Notre Dame. Those seem more manageable to me. But we found the last several years that USC has kind of slipped up a time or two. I do like their talent, and I think they're going to whip Western Michigan without PJ Fleck. So I like USC quite a bit week 1. I like USC a lot. Pac-12 you never really know, though.
Yeah, I think Washington is probably just down a little bit from their last year's season, but I think USC is definitely the class of that Pac-12.
Yeah, I mean, Washington is returning Jake Browning, and Jake Browning is another one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. Him and Sam Darnold are going to be
Right.
2 of the best. So, I think Washington certainly could beat USC, and I think those 2 are head and shoulders above everybody else in the Pac-12. I'm not sure there's even another team we could talk about out of the Pac-12 that's worth talking about. But, yeah, I mean, if I'm citing one way or the other, I'm probably taking USC in that situation. Washington has a little bit more of the pedigree going last year. One thing to note, those 2 teams do not play. They do not play with Washington out of the Pac-12 North, USC out of the Pac-12 South. So we could see a Pac-12 championship between those 2 teams, and we likely will.
Okay, to finish up here, I wanted to ask you: do you have a lock of the week? Even if we've already talked about it, do you have a lock team?
Well, I think 2 of them that we did talk about that I really, really like, and I guess I'll go ahead and lock it in, is Michigan. Now, you probably ought to get to that game, or it's going to continue to go up with the news of Florida suspensions. At 3, it was great. At 4, it was okay. At 5, it was, once it starts going 5, 6, 7. So I really like Michigan to win that game. Maybe take a money line, and you're not going to win as much money, but you're still going to win money. And I also like Illinois. And I'm not an Illinois fan, but I think the Illini blow out Ball State. We're talking a little too much about how poor Illinois is. They're going to be fine. Ball State's bad. I like Illinois I'll go Illinois as my lock, and that's saying something there.
Boy, it really is. So, okay, well, that about wraps it up. Next week, I want to talk also, besides the games, I want to talk about any coaches that might be on the hot seat. I think after week 1, there'll be some talk about coaches that aren't getting the job done. So we'll be prepared for that. And I want to talk about any surprise, whether it's good or bad. And I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm a little concerned about Oklahoma. They have a really tough schedule, and everybody's putting them up pretty high. But we need to look at that before we start betting on them.
Well, yeah, no Bob Stoops this year, so they're going to look a little bit different. I've always kind of sided with Oklahoma a little bit, so I think we might be a disagreement on how many wins they get. But back to the hot seat. I mean, one of the biggest hot seats, and we'll talk more about it next week. Brian Kelly at Notre Dame. I mean, he's probably the number 1 hot seat. If the Irish aren't good this year, we'll probably see another new coach. And then a couple teams out west, Arizona and Arizona State, I think both have hot seat coaches as well. So we'll dive into that next week.
Okay, well, that wraps it up for Noob Sports. I'm Tom, and Rodney, it's up to you.
Yeah, noobsports.com. Go there and find out all the latest. We'll have all of our college football picks. Make sure you check out the panel poll. If you want to get involved with the panel poll, we could use you if you want to be involved. So just email us at noobsports@gmail.com or Facebook, Twitter us. We do on Twitter at noobsports, Facebook as well. So looking forward to that. We'll try to come back to you next week with the college football podcast. Probably have a NFL podcast next week as well, as week 1 of the NFL season gets started next Thursday. So I'm Rodney. He's Tom with noobsports.com. That's KNUPsports.com.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Noob Sports Show. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider subscribing to our iTunes channel today. Plus, visit us at noobsports.com for more picks, previews, strategy, and news. That's KNUPsports.com.